She realized that she was getting so used to seeing herself with filters. So she posted on her timeline, and I asked her to post it in the group and said, would you please share this in the group? Because I'm sure so many others of us, that do rely on Photoshop, and filters and stuff like that. And so then I asked everyone else to then share an authentic, raw, unfiltered version of themselves too. And so many people did. And it was the most beautiful, inspirational thing.
Welcome back to Be Life Changers, where we share stories of purpose, passion, and people who are truly making a difference right here in our community. Today's episode is extra special because we're talking about something so many people quietly carry, and that is chronic illness. And how one woman turned her story into a mission to serve others. And I'm proud to say this woman is a good friend of mine. I'm sitting here with Sarah Buckley, and she's the founder of the Chronic Confessions and a healing mentor. It is a support group on Facebook. What we say, it's not just a support group. It's a revolution of healing. Sarah, I am so glad to have you here on Be Life Changers. I could not have had a better person join me today. So thank you.
I'm already going to start crying. So man, it's really hard for me to just accept a compliment. And that's honestly one thing that I have to say, that as someone who has had chronic illness for her entire life, to just say thank you and not try to explain is really difficult. And so I'm just going to leave it like that. So
we are so glad to have you, and I am glad to have you here at JT Visuals. They are definitely more than meets the eye.
I can already tell.
And as you can see, you're coming in here and meeting them. They're so warm and welcoming.
Yes.
They make it so easy to come in and record my podcast. I love it because, me being a busy mom and a business owner, I knew the calling was to start Be Life Changers. I knew it was to do this very podcast, but I thought, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this?
Right.
And so I was so blessed when I was introduced to Jared and his team, and they welcomed me in with open arms and wanted to be here to create Be Life Changers. And so I'm so excited to have you here today.
I am completely honored to be here today. Thank you so
You're
much.
so welcome. So let's start at the beginning. Tell me a little bit about you before Chronic Confessions.
So I was literally born with chronic illness, and you could pretty much sum up my entire life with one word: misdiagnosed. Because that happened repeatedly, and still to this day, it is happening repeatedly. This was actually a story that I wrote about myself. Let's see. I'm trying to see if it had a date on it. I think probably back in 2022, maybe. And actually even more things have come out since then. So this is what I wrote at this time, is that when I was born, my mother had preeclampsia. At 8 months old, I had my first bout with strep throat. Throughout my childhood, I had strep throat repeatedly. I mean, all I ever knew was just living in the pediatric office. At 8 months old, I was diagnosed with celiac. I had the distended stomach. My muscles and teeth started to deteriorate. And that's why, if you zoom in close to my teeth, you'll see that they're, stained yellow. That's not because I was ever, I did smoke, but that they started, literally, I had such severe malnutrition. I was literally allergic to everything I ate, including my mother's own breast milk. So everything started, all my permanent teeth, everything. So they said that it would always be this way. And it was something that I was really kind of ashamed of for a long time, and I even looked into having cosmetic surgery, but then was like, that's a vanity thing. So it doesn't really bother me so much. Anyway, so they decided not to, at that time, the only way to test if you were a true celiac was to do a biopsy of your small intestine. And back then they were like, no way are we going to do this to an 18-month-old. So they put me on a rotation diet. And so at 20 months old, I had a total body rash and petechiae as well as other GI problems. In elementary school, I had, again, repeated bouts of strep throat. in third grade, I started to have migraines and also started my first round of therapy for self-esteem because what I viewed as bullying at the time would not even compare to what my stepdaughters went through. But when I was in third grade, I always rooted for the underdog, and I never really understood why. So there was a girl named Samantha. I'll never, ever forget her, which is interesting that I remember her name because with going through perimenopause and, brain fog, word searching, like it's very rare that I actually remember anything these days. So her name was Samantha, and she was head to toe covered in warts. And so in third grade, kids are very mean, and no one wanted to be her friend, and they all made fun of her. So what did I do? I became her friend, and I was the only one that would hang out with her on the playground. So then, of course, everyone turned on me. Ew, well, you're going to catch it, and you're going to be like, anyway.
Right.
Third
mean
grade.
Kids. Mean kids.
Mean kids, right?
The mean kids.
And so then I went into therapy because I was like, well, why does everybody hate me? Because I'm just trying to be nice to someone. Like I didn't understand that concept.
Right.
So, and eventually, therapy helped. And so then in middle school, it says I continued to have more bouts of strep throat. And so if you know anything about PANS or PANDAS, which was not around at the time,
Right.
I probably, from all of the repeated strep throat occurrences that I had a form of PANS or PANDAS. It's suspected. So starting my freshman year in high school, I had a swollen lymph node behind my left ear. Then they started developing in my armpits and groin. I had a lacy rash that covered my entire body, except like this white ring around my belly button, which will come into play later. I had joint pain, severe fatigue. My ANA was positive. So my pediatrician sent me to an infectious disease specialist and a rheumatologist. But because they couldn't find evidence of a tick bite, because they searched me head to toe, they diagnosed me with long-term parvovirus. Are you familiar with that at all?
Oh, no, not at
So
all.
if you ever hear parvovirus, you normally hear it in sense of like puppies,
Dogs.
right?
Yeah,
dogs.
I was gonna say that.
So
Yeah, the
in
dogs.
human form, it's also known as Fist's disease, or like you get the butterfly rash over your face. And so I had all of that. And I probably did also have the parvovirus, but that wasn't the root cause.
Right.
So then I developed major depressive disorder with psychotic features. So I literally would hear things that were not actually there. And I was in and out of a mental wellness center 3 different times until I finally could graduate into like a day treatment facility. And so I went away to college my freshman year, and they thought what I had was my first manic episode. But like, again, this is a story of how I've been misdiagnosed my entire life. So my psychiatrist recommended that I medically withdraw from college that year, which I did. And as soon as I came home, he diagnosed me with bipolar disorder. So I started going to college locally, and at one point I was hospitalized with pneumonia. In 2006, I was coming home from a conference and ended up in the hospital with the worst migraine of my entire life. I literally thought my brain was going to explode out of my head. And I actually wrote that. And they ended up doing a spinal tap, which they botched. And the woman was like, "You can't possibly be feeling this." And I'm like, I am screaming. Like I probably crushed my father's hand. I was screaming so hard. My mom said she could hear me down the hallway.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, no, I can feel what is happening. And so, and then, so they had to do it again, this time under, I had warned her that I had scoliosis, and she still was like, I've never botched one in my entire life. So she was like, oh, well, congratulations. You're now this like second patient I've ever screwed up, and I've done, millions of them. And I was like, lucky me? I mean, like.
Like I've already went through all this all my life.
And now I have to do it again because you botched. Anyways, the second time through when they did it like with a x-ray, I didn't even feel it go in.
Right.
So if they had tested my spinal fluid that day, they would have seen that I had Lyme disease. But it wasn't even a blip on the radar back then. So they didn't. And so they ended up admitting me for a couple of days and released me saying that I couldn't stay there just for pain management. So then my mother took me to her pain specialist. And I'll always remember what he said. Sarah, I'm not this kind of doctor, but if I didn't know better, you have Lyme disease just like your mother.
Right.
And so my mother had just been diagnosed with Lyme disease in, I think, 2003, which was the year that I graduated from college. So I did find an infectious disease specialist, and before I went there, I looked up on the Lyme disease association.org and printed out the symptom list and just cried as I circled every single one in red. And there's like a huge list.
Right.
And so when I met with him, I just handed it to him and I said, this is me. And he's like, well, let's just, he's like, hold up. We need to talk about this.
Right.
And as I told him my story, he was like, okay. He's like, we're going to do a Western blot, which at the time was like, what they do. And he's like, but honestly, they're not very reliable because they're not. And he's like, but no matter what, we're going to start you on antibiotics because it's probably going to come back negative. But clinically, you present with every single symptom of Lyme disease. So, of course, it did come back negative, and we started me on, so I did 2 months of an antibiotic, and when I wasn't better in those 2 months, he was like, I don't get it. Like, why aren't you getting better? Well,
because I think when you go through things, there's so much, that we're learning as we go. And doctors are learning too.
Yes.
And not everybody is the same.
Yes.
And so, of course, we do have symptoms that mean like you may have the cold or flu or whatever, but then you have other symptoms that are close to some other kind of disease. And so
yes, and
it makes it so hard. And then when you are dealing with this from such a young age to being older, it creates other issues emotionally, mentally. And so I think, we just have to sit there and observe and wonder, like, wow, as a person, it's frustrating enough when we go through one bout of sickness. But when you look at people that are chronically ill, to have that empathy and to understand and relate just with us being sick one time, what it would be like if you got the wrong diagnosis and then go in and again. And, the doctor is feeling frustrated, too, because it's outside the box. So they're wondering, like, what is going on here? And so what would you think is probably the hardest part emotionally and mentally from going through that from such a young age to now? How could you wrap that up in just one to let the listeners kind of know how that, so we could have a better understanding of people who deal with chronic pain versus those of us who may have an illness or, some type of pain for a short moment?
That's an excellent question because the thing that I always say is that the only thing predictable about chronic anything is that it's unpredictable.
Right.
And so we are seen as flaky or, inconsistent. So I purposely did not put on any makeup except for some lip gloss. And I'm currently dealing with a sinus infection. You can, if you zoomed in, I have like perioral dermatitis going on. My body is in a full-blown flare right now. Yet I'm still here. I'm still showing up. I'm still, anyway. But we can't always do that. It's not always like, as someone with chronic illness, we have, this will probably take me about 2 days to recover from. But it was that important to me to be here to say this today.
Right.
So,
so that we can make other people aware.
Yes.
That it isn't just something that people are making up in their head.
No.
That this really does happen.
And we hear that all the time. So, I mean, throughout my life, because no one could ever really truly find out what was wrong with me, I often heard, you really should go see a psychiatrist. And let me tell you that happens way more in women than it does men. And so medical gaslighting and medical trauma is real. And I hate when they put trauma into categories of big T and little t, because I'm like, to me, trauma is trauma.
Right.
It's all how it affects you, your entire body, mind, spirit, soul. So being misunderstood, told that it's all in my head, that it's not real. I mean, so I started the Chronic Confessions as a faceless Instagram because I was going through a divorce, and I also just needed a safe place to just vent where nobody knew my name, nobody knew what I looked like. It was just my little place on the internet to just express myself freely.
Right.
So then as my divorce present to myself, I hired a life coach, and I really started to heal parts of myself that had been told to not speak out and not speak up and, stay quiet and be ladylike and, all those things that society puts on us. And I just kind of was like, so one piece of my story that we didn't get to is that in 2021, I went through a psych reevaluation. And I was found out that I actually am not bipolar, but this entire time I've actually been ADHD combined.
Right.
And so for so many people, like when they first get a diagnosis, they're like, oh, like finally my world makes sense. But since I've never known a life without some kind of diagnosis, right? And it wasn't like, oh, a sense of relief, like, oh, my life finally made sense. To me, it was anger and resentment because I was like, why didn't anyone catch this when I was 18? And then I think I told you that, Mel Robbins did this brilliant podcast episode about how the same thing happened to her. She was late diagnosed ADHD. So I didn't even have a clue that I possibly was ADHD until, well, we can get into that. But okay, so to go, sorry, you can tell I'm squirreling all over the place.
No, that's good.
So anyway, so it's just really just the misunderstanding. And I even saw this yesterday when I was sitting in court with a friend. And he got pulled over for being under the influence of marijuana because he self-medicated for having anxiety attacks.
Right.
And they charged him with a DWI for that. And so actually, his lawyer was trying to say, like, look, like this man has dealt with anxiety and he was self-medicating and he just happened to be speeding and you caught,
Right.
We're not saying it excuses the behavior, but it explains why. And could you please just, lower the, make us a better deal, right?
Right.
And
I think we're coming a long ways. I mean, I think that a lot of states
except
are
what
finally
that
starting to see.
prosecutor's remark was? We all deal with anxiety. And that's the kind of thing that I hear all the time. And it literally took every restraining bone in my body not to get up and want to just reach over and choke that man. I mean, honestly, if we're being completely honest, because it's people with chronic anxiety or, any type of chronic mental illness, we have a completely different level of mental illness or chronic pain or chronic illness. Like when it comes to the pain scale, you know what I mean? Like it's usually 1 to 10. And I've been in the hospital so many times, they're like, where's your pain? And I want to be like, I don't even register on your pain scale because what you may deal with as a 10, that would be 100 to me. Do you know what I mean? It's all relative. So I'm like, this pain scale means crap to someone who has chronic illness because there's not a day where I don't wake up and I'm in some type of pain or I'm dealing with some kind of symptom.
Right.
So that's my reality. And so anyway, the reason I told you that I was misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder is because when I was put on all those meds, they made me gain so much weight so rapidly. And then I just kept gaining. So when I went off all those meds, guess what happened? All the weight just melted off.
Right.
And so I'm now finally at a healthy weight, but I had lost.
And I think that's another thing that you deal with, is the fluctuation. And again, people who've struggled with weight know that's a whole other, issue of, again, making you feel like you don't, you feel like you belong or, all of that kind of stuff. So with the chronic confessions, I know I always like to take what I always call it our superpower. A lot of people say, may differ, but I say, what is your superpower? And the things that we go through in life, we have 2 decisions that we can do. We can either give up and let that pain take us over, whether that be the loss of a loved one growing up, divorce in a family, chronic pain. I mean, it can be it's masked as many things. And I always say those are things that try to defeat us in life.
Yes.
So you can just let it defeat you, or you can take that and make it your superpower.
Yes.
And that's what I like about your story, and that's what I really wanted to pull out.
Absolutely.
Is first of all, we're making people aware that these pain is real, and chronic illness is real.
Yes.
Anxiety is in different levels for different people.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, those things don't have to stop you.
Right.
It is your superpower.
Yes.
And by this, your superpower, you chose, instead of letting it defeat you, this feeling like I can't do anything in society. I
Right.
can't have a job. I can't, I can't do these things. You chose to help others in the same and bring awareness to all of us. Like even
Yes.
some things that I've learned today, you've helped us bring awareness to that. And so that's what I see with the chronic confessions. Tell me a few like highlights. I know you've started it, and I bet it's more than what you ever thought it would be because it's grew. You're very talented at that. It's grew to a lot of members. And I know, don't say nobody's name or anything, but like,
no.
but what I'm saying is like, tell us a couple of your favorite moments of like, man, I'm so glad I did this, because I know when we help people, it helps us.
Yes.
It helps that pain go down.
Absolutely.
And so give us a couple of examples of why you are glad that you started the Chronic Confessions.
I want to go back and answer what my superpower is first, because I love this answer, because mine has always been 3 things. I'm resilient AF. I will not curse, but everyone knows what that means. And also, I am really great at community and connection. Like I know how to connect the right people with other people, and I know how to build authentic community. I've done it millions of times for millions of people, like where they'll hire me just to grow their community because I am real. Like I'm an open book. I decided to heal loudly and unapologetically and show up as my authentic self. And so in terms of your question now, some of my favorite moments, one of them was just yesterday, which was a girl who posted just she realized that she was getting so used to seeing herself with filters. So she posted on her timeline, and I asked her to post it in the group and said, would you please share this in the group? Because I'm sure so many others of us, that deal with all of this, like do rely on Photoshop, and filters and stuff like that to make us look, not with the dark circles and, like all the things going on or rashes, like, and so she really inspired me. And so she finally, she was like, I'll think about it. And then so she posted it in there, and it is a private group. And so then I asked everyone else to then share an authentic, raw, unfiltered version of themselves too. And so many people did. And it was the most beautiful, inspirational thing.
Oh, wow.
And that was it was amazing to just be like okay in your own skin and not care what anybody else thinks and just show up and it be enough. So that was really powerful.
That is powerful.
And the other thing I think I would say is that you just really know what kind of like acts of kindness are going to affect someone's life. And I had shared this with you before, that there's a woman in there who reached out to me privately and said, none of my friends or family will listen to me. I just need someone to talk to. I just need someone to vent to. And so I gave her my phone number and I said, call me. I said, I will gladly listen. If you just want to vent, I will, just let you vent. I will not give you any opinion whatsoever. Because so often people want to say, well, have you tried this? Have you tried this? Have you tried this? And it's like, okay, like I know you have good intentions, but trust me, like I've been doing this my entire life, and it's not going to be erased with yoga. You know what I mean? Or I've already tried that. You know what I mean? Like it's, So,
and people have good intentions.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, they have good intentions, but I think sometimes, when I always say put yourself in a person's shoes.
Yes.
I think that's the one thing my mom taught me growing up is like, sis, they call me sis. So sis, I want you to think about this before you make a judgment. Put yourself in their shoes.
Yes.
Because we all think we would do or make a different decision, but when you really put someone in their shoes, would you? And I always think that's, really good advice for people when, especially the online world, we think we all have an opinion. We all need to share it. Just because doesn't mean you need to share it. Now, there is times people want that advice, then give it.
Yes.
But people that are dealing with pain every single day, they have tried many, many things. And so sometimes the answer is just listening.
Right. And so I
just having that ear. And I think that's what I love about the Chronic Confessions is that it's just people listening.
Yeah, or sharing what works for them, because
Right.
everyone in that group is either dealing with any type of chronic condition or is a caregiver of someone who is dealing with a chronic condition. And so not only that, but it's also just people who are aging, because as you age, your body starts to break down and you start to have health conditions. So there was a lot of original members who were like, I'm not sure I'm supposed to be in this group because I don't have anything diagnosed as chronic. And I said, that's just the name that I carried over from my Instagram, brand, right?
Right.
So, and I said, no, please post, because you like dealing with aging and going through like menopause and, now like, health, back pain, whatever it is that you start developing later in life, this is a place for that too. It doesn't have to, and you can just even be going through the navigation process of trying to get a diagnosis, which is a lot.
It can be a lot. It can be a lot. So let's tell the audience, because I know this is probably resonating with a lot of people. A lot of people can say, that's me. Like, I need a group like this. How do they find you? Like, how do they find you? What's your hashtag for Instagram, Facebook, all that kind of stuff?
It is just the Chronic Confessions. On Instagram, it's just, the Chronic Confessions. And then on Facebook, our free support group, I want to make sure that it's really important. It was really, really important for me to start this and to make it free and accessible for all. And that's why I started it on Facebook. And it would just be a private group that you would look up. And the only thing that's different is that it has the word community at the end. It's the Chronic Confessions community, because it's this beautiful community of humans who are so understanding, so supportive of one another, come from all different walks of life, and literally from across the globe. I have women and men who do not live in the United States. And and I even tell people, I'm like, just join, even if you never participate. There's never any pressure to participate. But if you ever need support or just want a quiet place on the internet to lurk, and just absorb other people's information and have it's there for if and when you ever need it. So just join.
Yes, because your story matters. And that's one thing I like about Be Life Changers is it's people's story.
Yes.
Because everybody has a story, and everybody's story is important. Everybody has a gift, a God-given gift to be here. And, even though you've went through a lot of pain, you have let God use that to bless many.
Yeah,
and not everybody makes that decision. And so this group is there to help people. And so I just wanted to share that and bring that out and let everybody know, these are life-changing stories.
Yeah.
And the Chronic Confession is full of life-changing stories.
It really is.
And when you're going through these things, sometimes you just need an outlet, or even just to share your story to help and uplift others.
Yeah.
Because it's not a pity party.
And it's not about toxic positivity either.
Yeah. It's about,
so we have one vent every Monday that's called our Monday Vent Thread, and no judgment zone. And I will either say, like, do you want me to respond to this, or did you just need a vent? And then, if they say, yes, I'd love your advice, then you might,
say something.
Yeah.
Right.
But otherwise, it's just a vent thread because, and it's this woman who's like road raging, right? That it just kind of automated. Every Monday it posts, and sometimes people post a lot, and sometimes it's crickets, which is great.
Okay.
But, I love that no one has something to vent. So it's always on Mondays, because Mondays are just hard in general. And then especially, I just said adulting is hard, right? Just
get it off your chest.
Yes.
The week will be good now. It's like, let it go.
Yeah. Just let it all out. So because I don't want it to be a place where all we're doing is complaining, because that's what most support groups do. So I am there to uplift and inspire and empower others to continue with their healing journey and to keep going and to just know that they are worthy, even if they just wake up.
Right.
That's enough. That should be enough.
Well, I love that. And that's what I love about your story. And thank you so much for telling everybody about it. Sarah, thank you for sharing your heart. You are building a safe place for people to feel seen, heard, and supported. And that is exactly what Be Life Changers is all about. Remember, your story matters too. Your struggles don't disqualify you, and sometimes the very thing that you've walked through becomes the light for someone else. Until next time, go out and be a life changer.